Welcome to Dental Business RX. Practice success in 30 minutes or less.
Thank you for calling ABC Dental.
How is your practice doing? If you're like most doctors, you'd probably give me a one-word answer to that question. Good, bad, going okay. That's actually 2 words. But if you give an answer like that, what metrics are you using to come to that conclusion? And that's what we want to talk about in this week's episode of Dental Business RX, specifically what metrics you should be using. There's 6 key metrics to determine the health of your practice. My name is Jeff Bloomberg, and I'm your host, and I'll be joined this week by Jeff Santone, who is our new client services executive, to discuss these 6 different metrics that you should be using and how they can actually lead to practice success. So, Jeff, I think they have you hooked up over there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome. Okay, good. So we've got these 6 key metrics that we want to talk about, and I think it's great that we're both on here. I do a lot of our, power client seminars. You're out there talking to new clients and prospective new clients all the time. And you have to go through these things real quick to figure out, what are you dealing with here? What condition is this person's practice in? So I figure we just go through these.
Yeah.
And just as a heads up, this most likely will be our first 2-part episode. Yeah. First 2 parts. I'm not doing 3 parts like Peter Jackson. So
no, I can't do that.
You found the new Beatles movie apparently is going to be 3 parts. I don't think he can make a movie. I'm not knocking his movie making skills. They're excellent, but they're always 3 parts.
Always.
Anyway, so, all right. So 6 key metrics. So let's roll through these as far as we've got our basic ones, which are?
The top 3, collection, production, new patients.
Okay. So those are pretty simple.
Yeah.
Okay. So now beyond that, when you're looking at a new client,
Yep.
What are you digging deeper on? What are the other numbers you're looking for?
The other numbers that I'm really interested in are case acceptance as a percentage.
Okay.
Call conversions, new patients to phone calls of new patients to actual new patients.
Okay.
And an attrition rate, like how many patients are we losing out of the practice?
Okay. So why don't we pick up each of these individually? Because what I'd like to do is give the listeners the ability to calculate these in their office. Obviously, I'm assuming they're already keeping production, collection, and new patients. Right?
Not as well as we'd like, but
true.
Yes, those are the top 3 that they know they should keep.
Right. One thing I will mention, I don't know if you've seen this, is I've seen it especially with newer clients where with new patients, it'll be if a person comes in my practice just as an emergency, do I count them as a new patient?
Yeah, we get that.
Yeah. Just to clarify, I'll throw this out here. My answer always is if they come into your practice, that's a new patient.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have to keep the x-rays? That's a new patient. Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. Keeps it simple. But all right. So now these additional metrics having to do with these other areas, how are those calculated and which is the first one you're looking at?
The first one that I really like to look at is the case acceptance percentage.
Okay.
And because it's the biggest bang for the smallest buck. That person already sat in your office. You already talked to them. You already presented something. And if we can start to get more of those guys to say yes to your treatment plan, then we're going to see some increase in your top 3, collection, production, overall profitability of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one that isn't complicated, but I find that most offices don't track.
Okay.
And we see this throughout our surveys when we have people come to our new patient workshop. We ask them a couple questions about their case acceptance, like how do you feel on case presentation?
Okay.
1 to 10, and they'll give themselves, on average, most people are about an 8.
Okay, so this is a self-rating.
Self-rating.
Okay.
Give themselves an 8, and then we ask overall, what's your comprehensive case acceptance percentage? How often do your treatments take full cases?
So if I present a larger case, $10,000 case,
Right.
$15,000 case, what percentage of people accept the whole thing?
Whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll find various ratings, 60 to 80, 90%. No one's usually below 50%. But then we couple that with a question of, well, do you feel comfortable talking about the money aspect of the case, of the presentation? And almost 80% say no, I'm not comfortable. So there are 2 contradicting facts, right? You can't be getting case acceptance and be uncomfortable talking about the money.
Right.
So that means they're using a different definition of case acceptance. So what are they using as case acceptance? I don't know. I mean, and I know it's nod of the head, even making the appointment. And so I started to figure, well, there's got to be a better way to track this. Like there needs to be a knowingness. And I want to be able to sit down with a client at some point and go, how's your case acceptance? And they go, oh, last month it was 68.6%.
But these numbers you're getting are not based off of them researching a bunch of patients. It's just them saying, oh, I'm an 8 out of 10 and 80% of patients accept comprehensive care.
Yeah, it's totally opinion based.
Got it.
Yeah, there's no metric, there's no number, there's no empirical evidence to support their number at all. And it's a little bit scary, because if you were to think about it, they should start good habits. At one point in their career, maybe they're going to have an associate. Mm-hmm. And now they're the investor in the practice. And the investor in the practice needs to know with certainty, what are our efficiency rates? How efficient are we at our assembly line, so to say, of getting the patient in the door and getting them healthy and happy?
Okay.
And this is a great efficiency number. The case acceptance is an efficiency number. So I started asking them to track it.
Yeah, and you have two really cool – the second way you explained to me that you have them track this I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
First way is cool, we know about.
Yeah, most people know about, but they don't do it all that well either, because they count it a certain way. So I'm not going to get into how we're going to change it when you become a client but how do you know a case has been truly accepted? Mm-hmm. I mean, you produced it. You did it. Even when you are a client and you're getting payment up front, there's still a small chance that you don't get it produced. So the ultimate metric and that I want to use, that I train these guys to use, is I give them a case acceptance log.
Okay.
And it's an Excel sheet. Anybody could create this Excel sheet. Mm-hmm. But this is the Excel sheet I used at the practices that I owned or operated. And it was very basic. It was, on the Excel sheet was the date, the patient name, their ID number, so I could easily track them if I had to come back to it. And then what did I present in a couple words, and then I had these two metrics, dollar value presented, total dollar value presented, full case presented, versus dollar value produced.
Okay. Not accepted.
Not accepted.
Interesting.
Yeah. Not scheduled even. You couldn't even put a number in there if it was scheduled. So you come in on, it's now Monday, and you say you're presented, let's just say something simple, 2 crowns. And for easy money's sake, it's $2,000.
Sure.
And you go, yeah, I want to do that. I'm going to schedule for after the holidays. I'm going to come in next Tuesday, whatever that is, right? So I'd create my sheet. I'd have your name, patient ID. I'd put 2 crowns. I'd put dollar value total presented, $2,000. Dollar value produced is 0 still.
Right.
Because I haven't done it yet.
Right.
I might have a note in the side margin over here, scheduled for this date, which I should put that note because that's an excellent indicator too. If I come back to this and now it's January of 2022 and it's still 2000 and I have a note, and Jeff was scheduled for November 30th and never made it. Let me follow up on this, right? So you start to see these patterns and stuff. And so we carry that forward and you could run this dollar value. And we used to do it on a weekly basis. Then you're running it so you can then keep it on a yearly basis. And with certainty, you could answer this question now.
Interesting. So if on a monthly basis, let's say, so we're right now, what is today? Today's the
22nd. Yep.
Okay. So in November.
Yep.
So if I came in today, I accepted that treatment plan, 2 crowns for, we're saying $2,000. It's a lot more. You're in an insurance plan. We'll say
so we're in an insurance plan.
Okay. So it's $2,000. I accept it, but I'm not coming until next week. Okay. So it still would fall into the month of November.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'd say you presented 2,000 and you produced 2,000.
Yeah.
Got it.
If you came in.
If I came in. Because there's a chance I might not show up.
You might not show up.
That's true.
So that's the one side of dollar value.
Okay.
And I was doing this for a while. And at the oral surgery practice, there were some really big cases. And so we actually came to a point, I don't know if you remember this, where we were doing a lot of like double arches, single arches, and we were getting really good case acceptance. And then that dried up a bit, and we hadn't noticed that the case acceptance on smaller things had kind of like fallen out. We hadn't paid attention. And so what was happening was when you tracked only the dollar value, you could get some false positives.
Okay.
You could get some indicators that we're getting really good case acceptance when we weren't. So I had to then put in this separate metric, and it was
But if you don't mind, again, this is all about you explaining this because I love how you explain this. But clarify, if you don't mind, just for the people listening. So you've got this first metric, just to clarify, you've got, okay, dollar value presented versus dollar value accepted. But you just brought up you were missing a lot of the smaller cases.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind, giving the listeners an example of how that could happen.
Yeah. So let's say we have an office that could deliver soup to nuts. They've got everything under house.
Okay.
So a guy comes in and he can be presented the extractions, the bone graft, the implants, all of it, right? And so we now have a double arch case. I don't know. Let's just say for simple numbers, it's $91,000.
Sure.
Right? It's insane, but it doesn't matter. It's
Big
91,000. Big number. So I have this one case that comes in this month. It's $91,000 and we do it.
Okay.
We produce it.
Sure.
It's a fantastic case. And I had 9 other cases that came in. They were small cases, $1,000 each.
Okay.
Nobody does any of it.
All right. So effectively, you've presented $100,000 in treatment.
Yeah. I've presented $100,000 in treatment. I get to the end of the month and I go, how's my case acceptance percentage? I go, wow, I did 91,000 out of 100. Oh, 91%, and I'm beating my chest. Right. I'm going, wow, I don't need this. I don't need any help. I know how to sell. Like, look at these numbers, right?
Right.
And so I created a separate metric was based off a number presented. Just the fact that a case was presented, I didn't care about the dollar value.
Okay.
Was a case fully accepted or not? And so it becomes a kind of binary, 0-1 type, metric.
We just lost all of our listeners unless
know.
they're into computer programming.
It becomes just a 0-1.
Okay.
So you come in and that $91,000 case, that counts as one case presented.
Sure.
But so does the single unit crown. That's one case. So
Got
it's a 1. It's a 1. So now at the end of the month, I presented 10 total cases. But only 1 was accepted.
Okay.
So now I have a 10% overall case acceptance percentage.
I see.
From a dollar value, I could get duped. And the opposite is true too, right? I could have what looks like a very poor case acceptance. I only got 9,000 out of 100. But I actually closed 9 out of 10 cases.
I see. So one we're measuring the dollar value closed or produced, really.
Yes, produce.
And then the other we're measuring cases accepted.
Yeah.
So we presented 10 cases. We closed in your example of the 91,000. We had a 91,000 out of 100,000 presented, but then we only closed 1 case out of 10.
That's right.
So we have some work to do.
Got a lot of work to do.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that 91 can hide a lot of problems of your sales line, and so from a metric and health point of view, you're like, we're doing really good. But if you didn't close that 91, you didn't close any cases.
Right.
So it's a scary proposition where you're putting all your eggs in one basket on these big cases that got to get done. And we got to do all of this. So that metric, most guys don't know how to track, don't track, won't track. They don't think they have the time to do it. Someone else should do it. But it's really simple. They're not presenting so many cases every day that it's going to take up their time. And that number, all the numbers that we go over the organization, they exist whether they choose to look at them or not.
Right.
So they're better off looking at them, knowing exactly what the organization could do, what it should do. So that was a number that I used and played against. So the 0-1 method, that 1 and 1, that's a little bit more, this is where people get confused, because.
Well, when you first explained it to me, if you don't mind me cutting in. I don't want to be the interviewer who cuts in all the time. But I'm going to.
Yeah, please, cut it.
No, but when you explained it to me at first, like I could obviously think with dollar value treatment presented, produced, right? It was easy. But when you brought up the 1-0, so basically if I presented this example, you're using 10 cases.
Yeah.
They all count as 1.
Yep.
But then I only had 1 closed. So under closed, I only have 1.
That's
I have
right.
10 presented and 1 closed.
That's right.
So therefore 10%.
That's right. And where it gets a little bit confusing, and this is what I see on case presentations, these guys are shorting themselves a little bit. So they come in, they sit down with the patient, and they go, look, you need 6 crowns. Got a perio program here. It's going to be $10,000.
Sure.
And the patient goes, I can't do all that. I can't start that. And then, okay, we get them to start with the perio.
Sure.
What they cannot do is then go to their case presentation log and put in just the perio. Because what they're presenting is 6 crowns and the perio. So you should put in that full amount. I presented $10,000 and all they did was $2,500. Okay, fine. All they did was $2,500. So now that leaves that number, 6,000 versus 2,500. But in the column of I presented 1, it's still a zero. Doesn't matter. They didn't take all of it. They only took a portion, and that's a zero. Until it's fully done, it's a zero. So it's a metric that shows you what's open. And I don't want to get too complicated. I used to mine data for a living.
You were an economist for the Federal Reserve.
So I could do some fun things with those Excel sheets.
So the inflation is all your fault.
Yeah, it is all my fault.
Right?
And this, people go, well, doesn't the system do this? And I go, no, the system doesn't do this. It doesn't do it well. If your software system did this in a way that was manageable, like I wouldn't be giving this to you.
Right.
But the software systems are stupid. It's garbage in, garbage out. Right. So why I had to come up with this is because Patterson EagleSoft is a garbage system. No offense, Patterson EagleSoft, but it does what it tells you to. It will do what you tell it to do. So if you do 4 wisdom teeth, it creates a treatment plan for 4 wisdom teeth. The patient goes, I only want 2. You create another treatment plan for 2. The 2 are still in there.
Right.
So now it's like you want to look at your metrics versus Patterson. They're so inflated. They're so incorrect that it's garbage information.
Interesting.
So that's why that Excel sheet is really helpful for the doctor. And I'll give you an example of 2 recent people I had take me up on the challenge of the case acceptance log. I gave it to one who had filled out that survey a bit. I talked to him. I'm really good at sales. I said, okay, good. Do you know? Well, not really. So I gave him the sheet. And I said, good, let's meet in a month. And he was like, yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Filled the sheet out, sat down with him, and he's like, okay, good. I'm ready to go over the sheet. I go, did you total it? He goes, no, I didn't total it yet. I was like, all right. I was like, so let's go through it, right? And he presented in a single month almost a little over $220,000 worth of dentistry.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. Produced a little over 50.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was eye-opening for him as here's this doctor who thinks, no, I get great case acceptance.
This was an 8.
Yeah. He's an 8. I don't need any help. All my patients take it. And I'm trying to tell him like, okay, good. Now this is this is state of the union. This is the current condition. So I'm not saying that you do more, you do less. If we could just get $100,000 accepted, you've just doubled your practice.
Right.
And that's sitting there. We're worried about the efficiencies of the front desk, of my lab, or saving. It's like, dude, we're sitting on $170,000 worth of dentistry that didn't get accepted.
Right.
So that number would have existed whether I made him tally it or not.
Right.
So
that's true.
It's just
maybe that's why he didn't want to tally it initially.
He was. I really liked him. He was a go-getter, and he wanted to know. And then the other example I had.
I know I would have held off on tallying.
I would have
thumbnailed it and went, oh.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was like, you presented 220,000. This is an office that does soup to nuts.
But that's really good.
It's fantastic. That you could even present that much. And
and to the client's credit, they actually confronted and did it.
That's right.
Some people probably just don't want to deal with it.
They don't.
Yeah.
The owners, these 2 examples I give you, and I give it to everybody, but these guys that take me up, they want their practice to do better.
Sure.
They're willing to look. They're getting to those nooks and crannies. This other example was a really fun one too, and she was a go-getter and just bought the practice again. And it came back to this example I just gave where it produced. And she asked me, can I count if they scheduled?
Okay.
And I said, no. I go, how many do you have that are scheduled into the future? And she'd only been doing it a month. So she said, there were 4. And I said, have any of them already passed the date that they were supposed to be scheduled and seen? And she said, oh yeah, 2.
Whoa. So she had, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand this.
Yeah.
So she had 4
that had
scheduled to do the work.
That's right.
But then 2 no-showed.
No-showed.
Or rescheduled.
Yeah, no-showed or rescheduled. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why obviously production indicates that they're actually doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was fun, but it made her and at that moment is when she had the realization oh, they're not sold. Yeah, they're not sold on this. They're not coming in. They don't believe in what I'm doing, So I was like, I was like, maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know, but it's definitely not a case accepted.
Right.
And so scheduling is not a great indication of I want to do dentistry.
Interesting.
So I know that's kind of hard to believe, but that's why we're teaching these clients how to get the patient to put some commitment towards their treatment.
Right.
Right. Because that's the next best indicator.
Well, and it's also part of with like the sales job. A lot of people think of the sales job as just, get the money. But if you look at it for if a salesperson here at MGE, their job is not done till a client actually starts the service.
That's right.
That's part of the game.
Yeah.
They don't start the service, their job's not done.
No,
Same thing in a dental practice. Until they're actually in the chair getting it.
It's a refund possibility,
Sure.
right? Until they're in the chair, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's just funny why I had to come up with this log. I mean, I had to do it for myself as an owner, but I wanted to share it with these guys because I thought maybe everybody did this. But more and more, what I realized is that what doctors count as case acceptance is more just of a head nod.
Right.
Or even a scheduling. But that's like me walking onto the Ferrari lot and the guy going, "Do you like this car?" I was like, "Man, I love that car. You want this car? I want that car. It's $350,000." And I go, "Oh, okay. Well, I need to think about that."
You just shake your head, yes.
Yeah. And he walks off the lot going, "I just made a sale. Done. That's going down. That's easy, Where's my next guy? That's how it's treated in the dental office. And it's ironic that, that we go through all this training, they go through all this training to become such experts in their craft and then just don't finish that last little bit, that last little, if they could just get the patient to want what they need, they'd get more production. They talk a little bit more about it, ask a few questions. But that metric is just there to identify what's missing. The beauty of the metric, forget about why I have the two. That's to balance out. But the real value of the metric is to debug your sales line.
Okay.
What can't the office get accepted?
Okay.
You would find it out really quickly looking at this sheet.
Oh, you just look at your log.
Yeah, you look at your log, right? A guy comes in, 2 crowns done, fillings done, denture done, bone graft extraction, implant, only did the extraction. 2 implants, didn't do those, right? Couldn't do the 3-unit supported implant bridge. What can't this office sell? Implants. Right. And so mystery solved. There's no, oh my goodness, what is going on? And now I got to go talk to the entire office. Like, no, I just go look at my efficiency ratios.
Right.
Where's the problem? Okay, so I always start with the sales line.
Interesting.
So I love those stats.
Well, yeah, because otherwise it may look like just some big generalized problem.
Yeah.
I like that. It zeroes in on it.
It totally zeroes in because nothing's more demoralizing to the staff to sit in morning meeting and the ownership go, "Guys, we're not doing well." And everybody's looking around and going, "I'm doing great. What are you talking about? Like, I'm answering the phones. I'm doing awesome." The hygienist is like, "I just hit $2,500 a day on average. Like, this is doing great." Like, you're not doing well is what you should be saying, right?
Or, I'm not doing well.
I'm
Sorry,
not doing
guys.
well.
There you go.
Michelle at the front desk, she's really not closing any of these cases, man. Darn it. They keep unclosing all of them. They keep getting up there. So it is ironic that we get to those meetings and they put in charge of their income and really the income of the entire practice and the staff and enhancement and service upgrades in the hands of the person who's not most qualified to do it. And so just by tracking it, you can at least know what you're missing out on.
Well, and you just said something there, if you don't mind if I just latch onto that for a second, because you're bringing up like when we're talking about quote unquote closing the treatment plan. And you just brought up the person who's not qualified to do it. Now, they're not necessarily not it doesn't mean they're not good at it or whatever, but I think what it is really more than anything else is a responsibility factor.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me interjecting on that point, because you have the doctor looking at like, okay, well, I brought this person up to my person at the front, my treatment coordinator. Maybe you don't have a treatment coordinator. Maybe they have a front desk person who does finances, and they didn't close it.
That's right.
Right? When really the missing responsibility is it's the doctor's job to close the case.
That's right.
That person can help you.
Yeah.
But it's the doctor's job ultimately. And the one it's going to affect most adversely beyond the patient not getting the treatment they need is the doctor and the doctor's practice.
That's right.
So that's something most people don't want to look at.
It's a tough thing to make anybody confront that you're responsible for that whole scenario.
What was like the example Greg used to give? Where, you don't go to Best Buy to buy a washer dryer. And then when you ask how much it costs, they don't point at the cashier. Say, "Oh, you see that person over there? Why don't you go ask them? I don't talk about money."
I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
I just walk the floor.
No idea.
Yeah. I just dust these babies.
I walk around and point out washer and dryers to people.
Exactly. Yeah, but maybe with that metric, it would help them realize like, wow, I thought Mr. Jones was going to do it.
Right.
He said yes. He shook his head. What went wrong?
Right.
Well, your front desk isn't there to figure that out. You should have figured that out.
Well, and whenever you pay attention to things like that, they improve.
They do. Yeah. Always. And just like that doctor, we looked at $220,000 and he only did 50.
Right.
I don't need him to have a case acceptance percentage of 50% and get 120. He could double his practice by having a case percentage of 40%.
Right.
He's already doing the 50. So if he gets to 75, to him, it looks like a huge win.
For sure.
There's still a lot of work to do, but it's moving in the right direction. So it's all relative to what we're already doing, not what could I achieve.
Sure. Is it improving or is it not?
Improving and not? And that metric is a great value to the entire organization. It's great value to the owner when you want to hire the associate. If you know that for the past 5 years, you've been presenting on average $200,000 a month and you leave the practice and turn it over to the associate and now it drops to 100, 150. The patients haven't changed.
Right.
So there was something that you were okay diagnosing that this new doctor isn't.
Right.
So the metric is really helpful from a lot of point of views, business point of views, but it is something that needs to be tracked, and it's one of those missing metrics of the organization. Everyone wants their collections to improve. Here's your low-hanging fruit.
Okay, so just to sum up for everybody, so we're looking at if they're going to start tracking their case acceptance rate, 2 statistics, and we had a name for these, and I forget what we called them, because there's the dollar value of treatment produced versus presented. So that could be like dollar value of case acceptance.
Yep.
And then we have number of cases presented versus number accepted.
Yeah.
Which that's case acceptance. That's case acceptance rate. I think we called it. So you've got the first one, which is you presented X amount of dollars and X amount got produced.
Yep.
And then the second stat, which is every case presentation, how many case presentations closed out of the ones you presented.
Yep.
And you mentioned something that I found interesting before we came on when we were talking about this on that second statistic. The first one's a no-brainer. That one seems pretty, and I like it, right? Yeah. The second one is, so if let's say I'm a dentist and I present an implant to a patient and they go off, because I just had a question like this. Yeah. Actually, Dr. Filliman had this question at one of our last ABCs, and it was some client's associate did this, had presented an implant. Patient went off to go get a second opinion. Patient gets a second opinion, they could have a bridge done. They come back, the associate does the bridge. Right? Didn't really want to, but he did.
Right.
So not ideal. Of course, when Dr. Philman heard about it, he's like, yeah, I would just tell him, why don't you go back to that guy who gave you the second opinion, know, and get your bridge if you really want one. It was like a $2,000 difference in the treatment plan.
Right.
One was 4, one was 6. But specifically, if you present 6 crowns to a patient and they only accept 2, they're going to do the 2 insurance covers this year. So the presentation counts as a 1 in this case acceptance rate statistic. But would I have a 1 or a 0 in that column as far as closed?
0.
See, that's the kicker.
Yeah.
They didn't accept the whole case.
That's right. That's right. And in the long run, you could have where you presented 0 because it's just you're doing more of the case and they finally finished it all. So it should all even out in the long run. I know that's confusing, but the kicker is you can't cheat the system.
Right.
It's either you're getting comprehensive care or you're not.
Right.
And the only way to get patients to return – comprehensive care. Otherwise, patients are leaving. And that's part 2 of our talk here.
Yeah, that's what we want to talk about. So good. So what I'll do is I'm going to wrap this episode up for now since we're about that point. If you guys have any questions about this or you want to take Jeff up on his challenge to and you'll be happy to talk to
I'd be happy to talk to him, give him the log, track it, let's follow up in a month. Let's see what it goes.
You can reach Jeff by email at jeffs@mgeonline.com. We'll put your link on the webpage as well. And you could also call Jeff at 800-640-1140. And we'll be joining you in next week's episode with part 2 of the 6 key metrics to track practice health. We'll see you back next week.